Professor Zionas, the President, ladies and gentlemen, Kalimera, good morning. It's a pleasure for me to participate in this annual event. It's the second time that I am here, and it's an honor for me that I can now open the debate on this second day after we had a rather interesting and lively debate yesterday. Now, ladies and gentlemen, next week you will see the publication, the going online of the so-called Digital Agenda Scoreboard. It's the second edition. It's the means that is used for the Digital Agenda for Europe to monitor and report on the developments and the progress achieved as regards this major tool of the Commission to ensure growth and jobs in particular. It will be published next week, as I said, with the main results and with, I think, a clear message, and the clear message fits to the discussion that we had yesterday. That is that this is a sector that still has a huge potential to contribute to the overall aim of the Agenda 2020 of the Commission and the Digital Agenda for Europe in particular, and that is to create growth and jobs. Not that we had so much growth within that sector, so also this sector is hit to some extent, but this sector has a huge potential for all the other parts of the economy. And just to give you one figure which confirms what we heard yesterday as well, so the mobile data take-up has increased the last year by 63%. So reaching on a new average of take-up in mobile data of 43%. As regards Greece, this is a bit lower, it's 36%, so there is still a potential. Now, why do we think that this sector can really help for recovery and new growth, new jobs? This is because one of the main goals that we discussed also yesterday, the targets that are included in the digital agenda as regards broadband. Several studies show that there is a direct relationship between broadband penetration and growth. So you can discuss the figures as usual, but I think the tendency is clear that the more broadband penetration a member state has, the higher the benefit and the higher the growth in terms of GDP. Now, we heard yesterday also from a representative of Ericsson that the same again applies for speed. So if you double the speed, you get an extra profit out of that. Where are we there? And I think that that's also important because there's still a potential. As I said, we have now achieved a broadband penetration on average in the European Union of 27.7%, and here Greece is clearly lagging behind. So you made some progress, but the latest figure stands at 21.8. So this means only achieving the average of the EU, or maybe even going a bit beyond, could already bring you 1% of GDP, if not even more. So it's an important sector. What we're discussing here has a relevance for the overall economy and should be seen in that context. Now, looking where we are at the moment, we discussed the three targets yesterday. Let me start with the first one, which is simply coverage of the population across the European Union with broadband without specifying high speeds. So there we are nearly where we want to be. So this should be 100% at the end of this year, and we already with 95% coverage at the end of last year. So that's not a bad result. I think important to note is the blue line you see here, because that's the mobile segment, and that shows that now with 3G we already have coverage of broadband about 90% in EU average, which means that the 3G coverage is already higher than the ADSL coverage in rural areas. What is still at stake, and what is our major challenge, shows this slide, and that's about speeds in particular. So when it comes to high-speed internet, Europe is clearly lagging behind. And this is even more true for your country, because I mean, we had some dispute yesterday, but also the statistics say that nearly 100% of the speeds offered in Greece are below 30 megabits. So there is still a way to go if we want to achieve by 2020 the goals of the digital agenda for Europe. Now, member states are doing a lot, and we just recently published a report on the broadband plans that member states are developing. 22 member states now have provided for such plans. We heard yesterday how important it is to have a national strategy. What I want to report to you, however, is what the Commission in particular, or the EU level, can contribute to achieve the goals. And the main issue there, as we all know, and we heard that in the discussion yesterday as well, is there's a lot of money needed, up to 200 billion, even more, and there is some reluctance to invest the necessary money. So the question is, what can we do to facilitate investments, to steer this broadband rollout in order to finally achieve the goals and to contribute to the overall economy? Now, what you see here is a bundle of measures which are under consideration at the moment in Brussels, and I want to go quickly through them to present those to you. I think one major point is the increase of regulatory certainty and consistency. We heard that even yesterday, and I hear it in all debates where I'm participating at the moment, what you need for investment is certainty. And that needs to be achieved. We are in the process of implementing, transposing the last reform, the last legislative reform at the EU level in the member states. We have done a lot of efforts to get this done. We are still missing 3 member states to follow, but as already was pointed out yesterday, Greece has already joined the club and has already transposed those measures which were the last reform package done at the EU level. But we are thinking about providing further regulatory certainty, and I'll come to that in a moment. One important point was also mentioned yesterday, and that is the lack of demand. So what can be done to stimulate demand? When I referred to the high potential of, in particular, mobile data services, then of course the need of sufficient spectrum is at stake, and in times as we are at the moment, financing, of course, and even there is some measures are aiming to facilitate financing, and a very new initiative is addressed is aiming at addressing the cost side. Of course, you can also get investments done and facilitate investments if you can manipulate on the cost side and bring the cost down. Let me quickly go through the first point. I said regulatory certainty. Already the NGA recommendation should provide for some certainty in that respect, and that has particular importance also in the field of investment. So it's appreciated and recognized in that recommendation of the Commission that co-investment schemes could lead to relaxation, as we say, of ex-ante regulation. The same applies for a risk premium. It's a given that, of course, the risks are higher for the deployment of high-speed networks, and that all should be taken into account. And it's the Commission which uses its new powers that were given by the last reform to ensure as much as possible certainty and consistency in particular in that field. We will not stop there. We are at the moment, as you know, in the process of considering to give further guidance by recommendations both on costing methodologies, so that's one of the areas where there's still a lot of divergence and therefore also uncertainty. And the same goes for regulatory tools ensuring non-discrimination. All this also with a perspective that if you had full non-discrimination applied, then maybe you can also reconsider the remedies imposed on S&P operators in order to ease a little bit the regulatory burden there. Now here the public consultations have been completed, and the Commission will come up with proposals rather soon. This will not